Rumors for the Switch 2 have been swirling around and gaining the attention of the broader gaming sphere. Spec sheets, information on the new Joy-Cons, cross-compatibility, and even images of what it would look like have been leaked. These rumors have appeared to have come from a Chinese manufacturer, of whom have ramped up production in preparation for the launch. Based on this information, it appears as if the Switch 2 will not be as revolutionary as something like the Wii was. But is that something that Nintendo needs? The current outgoing Switch has been Nintendo's biggest success. The fact that you can have a home console that also serves as a portable console is incredible. Nintendo found their niche, and it has paid them off in spades. As it sits, the Switch has the potential of surpassing the PS2 and Nintendo's own DS to become the most successful video game console of all time. Changing up that winning formula would severely hurt the new console's chances of piggybacking off that success. TLDR, Nintendo doesn't have much incentive to radically change course with the Switch 2. If this is the case, then it has to do something in order to justify its higher price tag. To add on top of that, it must avoid the pitfalls of the consoles that preceded it. It is a tightrope that Nintendo must walk. They've done it before, sometimes to great success like the SNES or the 3DS. But the scars of the Wii U loom within the minds of the executives at Nintendo. With all this rumored information in the public eye, the only questions left to ask is, when will Nintendo unveil this new console? And will Nintendo justify its newer, more expensive system? First, we have the styling. The Switch 2, as presented in the leaks, doesn't look significantly different than the current Switch. In fact, it looks like a slightly larger version of the Switch OLED. The screen is reportedly 8 inches, just 1 inch larger than the current OLED. It is also reported to only be an LCD unit. Now this would be a cost-cutting measure, as the system will supposedly have a $400 US price tag. This would undercut the current lowest price PS5 digital by $50 and the Xbox Series X by $80. Some have speculated that its power would be similar to that of a PS4. That's significantly more than what the current Switch puts down, but still trailing the PS5 and Xbox Series X. But that's okay, because power has never been the Switch's forte. It's all about portability and Nintendoism. Translation, Nintendo does whatever the hell they want. Besides, the Xbox and PlayStation aren't what Nintendo's gunning for here. They are squarely aiming at the Steam Deck, or at least I would expect them to. Some rumors say that the Switch 2 will only have 8 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of memory, as that could potentially allow Nintendo to keep the price down. However, I think it will be something more along the lines of the other rumors to stay competitive. If that's the case, then they would give it 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of memory to keep up with the Steam Deck. But on the flip side, Nintendo does things their way and no other. That's what makes them interesting. When the Switch first came out, it was novel and had no competition, so Nintendo got away with less than stellar performance specs. Now they have the Steam Deck to contend with. So, whether they like it or not, Nintendo has to have something that can keep up with the competition. Price-wise, the Switch 2 is about $400 based on the rumors, exactly what the entry-level Steam Deck costs. Personally, the sleek styling of the Switch and Switch 2 get it done for me, especially compared to whatever the hell clunky-ass 80s-looking monstrosity Valve was going for. Everything here points to a not-so-radical update to Nintendo's aging hardware, so it would behoove them to at least keep it somewhat competitive. and the specs leaked seem to echo this sentiment. That's what leads me to believe these leaks carry some weight. The Joy-Cons for this new Switch are considerably larger than the current ones, which is a blessing for those of us born with large paws. The biggest change, outside of the size, is the new magnetic attachment system. With this, you'll be able to just slap the Joy-Cons on and off the console with a more natural horizontal motion. And because of this, some are speculating that Nintendo will change the Switch icon animation to suit this new horizontal click. There are also two new buttons to see, one on the front underneath the home button, and two in the rear beneath the triggers where the lock button currently sits. The two in the rear are obviously new lock buttons. The reason they changed it up from the original is likely to suit the horizontal mag attachment motion, making it far more natural to unlock and pull off in one move. Some speculate these buttons are extra buttons the players can code for a specific purpose, but Nintendo has never been known to add these additional buttons to their controllers, so I find that unlikely. The other extra button is the one underneath the home button. It has a C on it, or a crescent moon shape. This can be one of two things. First, it could be a quick cycle between night mode and day mode. However, this can already be easily accessed via the pop-up home menu, so coding a button for this seems rather pointless. The second and more likely conclusion is that it's a photo mode button. Nintendo has been adding photo modes to nearly all of their mainline titles. This is most notable in Super Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land, just to name a few. But these modes were rather cumbersome to access, or were coded to another button, so coding a dedicated button for this feature seems like a no-brainer, so that leaves developers one more button to work with. Besides, having a universal photo mode button would just be nice. Other slight differences are larger trigger and bumper buttons, as well as a slightly bigger SR and SL button for single Joy-Con play, whatever psychos like to play with that mode. It is also rumored that it will have a coprocessor on board to allow for 4K gameplay on a TV. However, rumors of that have died down, so the likelihood of that happening is doubtful. It should be noted that many predicted the Switch 2 to be released as early as holiday 2024, but it was delayed because Nintendo wanted to avoid the potential restock horrors that the PS5 and original Switch had upon their respective launches. In a recent investor meeting, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa said, translated by IGN, as a countermeasure against resale, we believe that the most important thing is to produce a sufficient number to meet customer demand, and this idea has not changed since last year. Because of this, most leaks now point to it being released either late March or April of 2025. Mind you, the Nintendo president said in a tweet that they would announce it before the end of the 2024 fiscal year. In finance terms, Nintendo's fiscal year doesn't end until March 31st, 2025. I know nothing about production timeframes, but about half-year delay seems to me a reasonable amount of time to keep up with demand. A big point Nintendo likes to make when transitioning from one console gen to the next is a big new game. Almost everyone and their mother expects them to release a new 3D Mario game, as that would make a big splash given that it's been almost 8 years since Super Mario Odyssey came out. Another possible is Metroid Prime 4, which was announced earlier this summer. It should be noted that in the June Direct when it was announced, the iconic Switch animation was not added to that trailer, leading many to think that it may be a launch title for the Switch 2. However, in its solo trailer, Nintendo added that animation. So indeed, it will be a Switch game, but that does not preclude the possibility for it to be a cross-platform release, however. Nintendo has done this in the past, most recently for Breath of the Wild releasing on both the Wii U and the Switch. It's just everyone forgot that it came out on the Wii U because no one bought the Wii U. Some speculate that a new Zelda game will be a release title, but given that Nintendo just released Echoes of Wisdom and before that Tears of the Kingdom, crunching the Zelda team to force out yet another title for the Switch 2 would just be ludicrous. If that was their plan, then why not release Echoes of Wisdom for the Switch 2? It would have helped the Switch 2 get off its feet. Why Nintendo chose otherwise, we will never know. Of course, all these new games would be great to help bolster the sales for this new system, but what about backwards compatibility? Next to everybody expects it, especially if the system's name is Switch 2. And because Nintendo confirmed that the new system will retain Nintendo Online accounts, it would be incredibly baffling if they exclude backwards compatibility. If you consider Nintendo's past, any system that supported the same physical media type, be it a disc or a cartridge, it usually was backwards compatible. By all accounts, the rumors point to Nintendo retaining the cartridge for the Switch 2. If this be the case, then I would imagine it would work like the 3DS, where the newer cards are just larger than the previous generation's cards. That way you can't put the new cards in the old system. What does this all mean? Does this justify Nintendo making a whole new console? Furthermore, will the average consumer care to pick up a new system when the current Switch is sitting right there next to it? Well, the graphical improvements and up-spec'd hardware will attract the hardcore Nintendo fans, but it would have done that regardless. Whether it appeals to the average fan will depend on how strong the new lineup of games are. And to answer whether this justifies Nintendo making a new system, it is a well-known fact that the Switch is vastly underpowered. Developers have been pushing the system to its absolute limits, so anything that has more power is welcome. As I said before, Nintendo found their niche. Changing this too much might undermine what momentum they created with the Switch, as well as impacting the ever more precious price tag. What we see here is what Nintendo wants, something that's a leap forward without missing the goal.